Just because he would see me and he would say, look at me like, how are you doing? And I would say, at least I can sleep with myself at night. You know, I don't know how they can do that, but I know that I feel good about what I'm doing. My name is Gwen Sullivan. I'm the president of Portland Association of Teachers. I am also a teacher. Thank you. I'm also a teacher, and with my position, I'm on leave from my teaching responsibilities because it really is a 24 hour a day, 7 day a week job. It's always. And it's interesting to hear the media. I will say, even though I'm getting ahead of myself, you know, in the end, when we finally wrapped this contract up, it was really such a warm feeling to know that who had the story first. It was public broadcasting, it was KBOO, and it was the socialist paper that had the information first, and I was like, yeah. It meant a lot that you know, we need to make sure when we are talking to the media that we're going to media that really accurately describes what is happening. So, I'm also a parent in Portland Public Schools. I have 2 kids currently in 2 different schools. And so, I mean, I definitely live and breathe everything that we did on behalf of this contract. So tonight, what I'm going to kind of describe in a very short amount of time is basically how we got our contract, how we came up with our proposal, the bargain, the process, where we landed and where we're going. So to start off, I would say it was, many of you may or may not know, but for about the last 20 years, we've been dealing with cuts, declining budget. And after the first year, and I feel like I've lived it and breathed it every single year, but after the first year, you look at it and you go, oh, that's terrible, and you see a small amount of it. And then the next year it happens, and the next year. But that impact, the huge impact over 20 years of every year just chipping away, has a profound effect on our classrooms today. Our ability to meet our students' needs is sometimes impossible. And as teachers, we get into this line of business because we want to work with kids. We want to make a difference in their life. We want to make them critically think and problem solve on their own. And when we can't reach them, it is frustrating for us and for our profession as much as it is for the entire community. So after 20 years of these cuts, there was a moment about 2 years ago where we were talking about what is our vision as these grants are coming to they're being presented to us. Oh, you have this opportunity to apply for this Race to the Top grant. And these were things that we didn't agree with. Why would we want to apply for something that has no merit or value in the things that we believe in? But it was money. And so those things started happening more and more. And then that's where we were like, wait, what is our vision? What do we believe? And the conversation about what we believe, like I said, started about 2 years ago. Not long after that, Chicago happened. It was probably just the next year, not 6 months later. You know, they're on strike. We're watching, we're following, we're watching. We see that they had this document, the schools our students deserve. And as we started looking through that, it was the same thing that we were talking about, you know, about 9 months earlier. What do we believe on behalf of our students? And so we pulled together a committee of teachers. There's about 20 teachers from all different places around the city, different subject areas, grade levels. Some of them were school psychs, early childhood, they varied. And when we brought them together, we started to talk about what do we believe on behalf of our kids in a more systematic way. And we began that schools our students deserve document. Our hope at that time was to create that and then move on to the community and to our parents and to our students and say, okay, we have kind of a general framework. What do you believe? What do we believe collectively so we all have a vision of our public schools together? But then that didn't happen because as this negotiation started, the district had no intent to really sit down and talk with us about issues. They just wanted to go forward with this traditional bargaining. Fine. So what we did is we took that framework of the schools our students deserve, and we brought that into our bargaining proposal. And what that was all about is, how do we meet the needs of our students? How can we do that through a collective bargaining agreement? From there, as we were looking about how to make things better, at the same time, our school board, some of our school board, their intent, and district leadership, their intent was not to make things better on behalf of our students and our profession. Their intent was to take down the teachers. It was evident and very clear. It wasn't about, let's work together to figure this out. It's, let's take away your power, let's take away what you do as educators. And as the time went on through this negotiation, it didn't get better, it got worse. What we saw was that every time that we would bring in professional educators to talk about why we wanted to change certain things in the contract, we'd talk about these really horrific stories. They would say, okay, thank you, important conversation, but doesn't belong in a bargaining agreement. Well, when are we going to have these conversations? You know? And the reality is those conversations never happened. They didn't happen in the past. So we kept on pushing, and it got to this point where we were a little ways into it, and then they gave us this, I can't remember how many pages, 13-page legal document that basically said, we refuse to bargain all of these issues, and of course they were the ones that were most important to us. And you know, things about how opportunities for kids and student testing and class size and caseloads and student loads and you know, all of these things that are really important, they refused to talk about. We couldn't even talk about it at all. So at that point, we had to change our kind of regroup and change what we were doing. And not to get too weedy, and I brought my phone so I could see how much time I'm taking up, but at that time we had to take a different strategy, and we had to bring two proposals. One was our original proposal, and the second one became this mandatory proposal, the one that the district it was pretty much forcing us to bargain over. And I say forcing us because the things that we really wanted to talk about, they would say was permissive, so the only way we could talk about it is putting a dollar figure to it. So let me give you an example. So one of the things was about class size. We wanted to, originally in our proposal, we said, here are some national standards of what good practice is, best practices for class sizes and caseloads for special ed and ESL. These are things that we want to do, and we're hoping that you look at this as a way that we can work toward these sizes. So by 2015, what was it? I think it was 2018, that we would achieve this level, that we'd work on something together. That was in our original. But when they said they refused to bargain it, we had to change it. We changed it to, all right, anything over this number, there's an impact pay for every student over that. That's mandatory. If you ask any teacher, do you want more money for more kids in your class? No, we want less students so we can actually meet the needs of our students. But we were forced to do some interesting things, and we did that. In the end, or through that bargain, you know, of course they didn't like that. And they challenged some things, and many of you may or may not know that they had hired Yvonne Deckard, a retired HR director from the city. She was getting paid $15,000 a month to work on our contract, and not to get too weedy, but she is still on the books getting paid $15,000. So that was happening. You had Yvonne, you had Miller Nash, a law firm that was working on, you know, all the things that we couldn't do, and then you had a very, very aggressive board and leadership. And I say board because that's what we were told the whole time. Well, the board wouldn't allow this, or the board doesn't want us to do this. So the bargain was really ugly. There were moments where it was so frustrating to be a parent and know some of the things that they were doing. And then something happened, which was pretty remarkable. It started off at, I'd say, at Cleveland High School, where the students had this lunch rally to support teachers. And it was pretty beautiful. Yay! And then the next thing happened is it really spawned this whole series of student activists, not just at Cleveland, but then it moved to Jefferson, it moved to Wilson, it moved to Roosevelt. There were walkouts. Kids were banding together with their teachers. And at that point, by the students coming together on behalf of teachers, more and more teachers were coming out for themselves. Because you have to remember, teachers are vulnerable. And I say we're vulnerable because we care about kids, and they know it. And so we keep on doing things to protect our students. So when the students came out on behalf of teachers, it was a big turning point, I would say. There were... I would say that at that point, there was also this other group of parents and activists, Jobs with Justice, other labor unions, other just activist people out in the community that has this PAT solidarity group. And I remember being in one of the bargaining sessions, and one of the district officials said, "Would you please call off your rally at the district office?" And I could say, "I'm sorry, I have nothing to do with that one." So it was really empowering to see that the parents and the community and the students were all banding together with us. So in the end, I would like to give you a beautiful picture about how it all ended. But I would say the truth is even in that last 23-hour session, it was not pretty. There were moments when it was obvious that somebody was trying to tell us, "Oh, we'll give you this, and we're going to take this away." And the this away was, they were trying to get us to walk out the door. They were trying to get us to leave so they could say, "See, the teachers' union," not the teachers, because they're separate for some reason, but the teachers' union left, and look what we offered. And some of the things in the beginning that they offered were, a few more than the 88 FTE that they originally put, and maybe I can't even remember at this point what the other thing was. There was like 2 changes, and we could tell they were ready to PR about it. And that we saw that they were going to try to divide the teachers. So then the second things came around, and it was probably 3 a.m. at this time, but they tried it again. And they tried it with something else, and we didn't take the bait. We didn't walk out. And so what ended up happening is and I say we didn't take the bait because if we were to have walked out at that point, they would have said 100 more teachers and a certain percentage raise. And then if you were to bring that back to your own teachers, they'd be like, "Why are we striking?" And the others, we'd be split. That's union busting. So we stayed, and we bargained a little longer, and what we ended up getting is we got a lot of improvements in our language. We got improvements around standardized testing as far as how it cannot be used in employment decisions, which is really cool. We got language around academic freedom and day-to-day instruction, that you don't have to be on this page at this time, at this, that you could actually teach your students based on who your students were and what they needed. Interesting concept, but it was really important. And then we got a new language around respectful working environment. And respectful working environment, some of our schools, the administration there are very hostile. And they do not create a place for good learning or teaching. And so that was really huge for us. Those things don't cost anything. They don't cost anything, but they were really important to us. And then on top of it, a minimum of 150 more teachers, a minimum next year. So, of course, it's not without losses. One of the big thing that still sticks with us is we had, a lot of people call it early retirement incentives, ERI, and really what it is, it's the Medicare gap. If you've been teaching for 33 years and you're 62, 65 is when you get Medicare. Well, if you can't afford the insurance and living to get to 65, that's the gap. The insurance would have covered that. And that's the one thing that still sticks in many of our craw, it bothers us, is that they wanted to eliminate that. It was something that saved them money, and it was mean-spirited. So, there are give and take, but we feel like we made a giant step forward. But I will tell you, there's a marathon in front of us that through this negotiation, we know that there's a long way to go to where we need to get to make schools the schools our students deserve. We know there's a long way, and we are committed. And through this process, we are more united than we have ever been. I mean, temporary teachers, first-year teachers, 30-year veterans, everybody is united. So where we're going is all I will say, and I will end by saying, this is far from over. This fight is not just a Portland fight. It's happening all over the country. It's happening at Portland State University. It's happening at DCTU. It's happening everywhere. And this fight only inspires us about what we can do when we do something together. So thank you very much.